Welcome in to Moving the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Drell Hendricks. We've got a great guest today, the new head coach of the Hanahan Hawks, Milan Turner. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, we appreciate your time. We really do. If this is you guys' first time checking us out, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Moving Chains, movingchains.com, our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Coach Turner was hired in January. He was the director of high school relations at Georgia Southern University. Prior to that, he spent time at 7 programs in Georgia, went 112-43 in 13 seasons as a head coach, including a state title win, and coached in 6 state championships at 5 different schools. Coach, let's start there. What's it been like, getting out of Statesboro back over here to Hanahan and kind of getting that transition rolling there?
It was about like drinking water from a fire hydrant. It really was. A quick turnaround, but it was really exciting. Obviously I enjoyed a great time in my time coaching high school ball in Georgia. Great communities and coaches and players through my career, and then what a great opportunity and experience to go work with Clay Helton at Georgia Southern. And I had a blast. It was a thrill. I really enjoyed it, but about halfway through the season, I just really, really missed leading a program. I'd done it for so long and still had it in my blood. Coaching was in my blood and leading was in my blood. And so, just really began to pray, about direction because I knew I was in a good place and had a great opportunity where I was. But, some doors began to open around Christmas and early January. And this was a place, obviously, I've got 2 grown children and 2 grandkids that are in Georgia. So when you start thinking about making moves, that was obviously family was a big factor. And coming to South Carolina keeps me close to home, close to family. We really love the upstate Greenville area, and we love the Charleston and the Low Country. Those were 2 places that we were very fond of, that we had vacationed and visited. And so this was a really big opportunity. And Hanahan, we felt like was it was just a great place to be. We saw they had great leadership, a great community. A lot of the things that we were accustomed to down in Georgia, we felt like a lot of those things were here. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for us to make that move.
Coach Turner, you've got one of the most impressive resumes we've had the pleasure of seeing. Kevin detailed it briefly, but if you don't mind, go into your coaching career a little bit. How'd you get started and to the point where you got here to Hanahan?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the biggest thing I'll tell you guys, like I tell anybody else, there's an old saying, if you see a turtle on a post, he didn't get there by himself. And that's definitely the story of my career. I had the great fortune of, coaching with some great head coaches, had some great programs. It was really neat. I got through at Georgia Southern, 92, 93, and I'd actually started my own lawn and landscape business. And so graduated, was doing that, and had done some community coaching at Statesboro High School with Coach Charles Webb, who was a legendary coach down in that area for a long time, and really enjoyed it. And then I think he had talked to Coach Chuck Conley, who was at Screven County at the time, which is right across the river here from South Carolina, right across from Hampton. And Coach Conley called me up and offered me a job, and I took it. And we played for a state championship that first year, and I said, well, this is easy. We'll just do this every year, and which it wasn't. That was definitely not the case, but I had a great experience, was very indebted for Coach Conley doing that. Started out again high school ball, and then went back, got my master's degree, and Coach Paul Johnson came into Georgia Southern there in 97 and had a chance to go over there with Coach Mike Brass as head strength coach and get my master's degree and work in strength and conditioning. And that was a great experience working with those guys and learning from Coach Brass. And then they offered me an assistant strength coach job, making $19,000. I had a wife and 2 little kids, and local high school offered me a job making about 3 times as much. And my wife said, which job you're taking, right? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. And so back to high school coaching we went, and made some great stops there. I was in Bullock County, Statesboro area for a few years at Southeast Bullock, and then went to Fitzgerald, Georgia with Coach Robbie Pruitt. Coach Pruitt's a 7-time state champion in the state of Florida. Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year. Was the youngest coach inducted in the Florida Sports Hall of Fame, and came up out of Florida to Fitzgerald. And our first year there, we played for a state title in 2000 and had really tremendous success. And then we went to a great school of tradition, Warner Robins High School in Middle Georgia, and won the 2004 state title there. I left there and became the head coach in Emmanuel County from 2005, 2011. We played for the 07 title and won it. Played for the 2008 title. Went 14-1 and lost that state championship game. And then spent a few more years there, and then took over Hanahan High School, which is right outside of Augusta, just not far from North Augusta. Had a great time there, great program. Went to the semifinals there, and then the opportunity to go to Coffee County with Coach Pruitt down in South Georgia was a huge opportunity for me to go down there, and we went down there for 4 years and played for a state championship there in 2017. Lost on overtime to Lee County. And then I had a chance to finish up my career back in the Warner Robins area. They had a new school called Veterans High School. Was not there back when I was at Warner Robins, but newer school they had built. And it was a chance to go back, people that I had built relationships and knew well, and finish up my career at a great place. Financially, it was a great opportunity for our family. And again, a chance to go kind of build a program from the ground up. And that's kind of where we wrapped things up there, and then retired. When I retired, obviously wasn't looking to, just go hang out. I was just looking for the next opportunity, kind of what was next. And had some opportunities to go on staff at our local church. I had some opportunities to coach high school ball again, some private schools. And then Coach Helton called with the opportunity at Southern. And I just felt like that was just a really great opportunity to go and experience that. And then the rest is history. Here we are in Charleston.
So, Coach, you mentioned obviously you had some really good success in your career in Georgia. What stood out to you about South Carolina and Hanahan in particular made you want to come over to kind of our state and get involved in the coaching stuff?
Yeah, well, the coaching world is really small, it really is, even across the country. You network, you build relationships. I knew some people who had coached in South Carolina or who were still in South Carolina. Obviously, in my time right across the line there in that Statesboro area, obviously we hear a lot about low country ball, WTOC, those guys in Savannah that do the sports casting, they spend a lot of time in that Beaufort area and in the low country. And so we were always hearing about it and seeing highlights and things like that. So I was familiar much more so with the low country, obviously, than I was with the upstate. Knew about upstate. We had come up here when I was in Emmanuel County. We went to an SCA team camp up at in Spartanburg. And so got to see a lot of the different players, different coaches, different programs. I got to know the coaches at Burns through the years and some different ones, and talking ball with different guys. And so we were very familiar with South Carolina and the football here, and then having some relationships with guys. So again, like I said, it being close to home and just knowing there were really good coaches in the state and really good players, it just still reminded you a lot of Georgia. And then, like I said, with Hanahan, we really felt like the more we looked at it, obviously the Charleston area is a big draw. When you look at Hanahan, it's got 2 elementary schools and a middle school that feed into it. It kind of made you feel like a one-horse town, even though you were in a big area. That community loves Hanahan. If you go over to the 2 elementary schools, they're all wearing their Hawks shirts. If you go to the middle school, they're all Hawks. We felt like it was an opportunity, if we came in here over time and did it right, that we could really build on what was already here, the foundation, because they have had a lot of success in the past. But we thought maybe we could build on that and hopefully build something special.
Coach, you mentioned the coaching world being small. So let's talk a little bit about your staff. Were you able to keep a lot of the staff in place? Did you bring in new guys, maybe pick some guys from Georgia? Just talk about your staff a little bit for us, please.
Yeah, great question. And we did some of both. There were some real quality coaches that were here, and for different reasons. Some of those guys had other opportunities, and I had some guys I wanted to bring in. And I think it worked out for everybody involved. We kept a few of the guys that were on staff, but I was able to hire some guys here in South Carolina. I had a former coach out of Georgia, Coach David Hines. He had coached 30 years in Georgia like me. He had been mostly in the metro area, was a head coach at Harrison, had been at Walton High School, North Paulding. Very, very good football coach. He had retired to the area. He saw that I had taken the job and reached out and, wasn't looking to get back into teaching, but missed the ball and wanted to coach and very like-minded and kind of knew of each other from afar. So it worked out for me to bring him on. Brandon Ford, that played at Hanahan and played at Clemson. was a guy that had just come back to Hanahan and had been on the staff last year. Obviously, wanted to keep B Ford, love him and what he brings to our staff and to our program. Bart Blanchard, who played at Citadel, was from Rock Hill area, Northwestern High School, had coached, I think, a couple of years ago and was looking to get back in it. So we brought him in. B Ford's coaching wideouts, Coach Blanchard's quarterbacks. I kept Zach Evans, who played at Charleston Southern and was on staff here as an offensive line guy. So Coach Hines is an offensive line guy, and Coach Evans, I like to have two OL guys. And so I've got two great ones. I feel like doing that. And then brought in my offensive coordinator, Cam Willis, who had been over at Berkeley. Really did a lot, interviewed a lot of guys. We had a ton of interest in our opportunities, both from South Carolina. I had a bunch of guys in Georgia that were very interested in the opportunity. And so, just kind of went through the whole process, interview, and I'm much more of a people person in an interview than just the X's and O's. Like, I want really good people and people that are going to fit and are like-minded, that really want to impact kids and have the big picture. I just felt like Cam was that. He was high energy. I knew that he knew football. That wasn't a question. I didn't need to get on a board and see him draw a bunch of plays. I was more concerned with what kind of man he was and what was he going to be like for our kids. And I was really impressed. Same thing with our DC, Brett Fields was the same way, I liked his energy. I liked what he was about, and felt like, again, he was going to be a guy that would be great for our staff and great for our kids. So we hired him away from Cane Bay. Hired Jacob Poston as our special teams coordinator and secondary from Ashley Ridge, another local product that we're really excited about having. Lane Rika, who was an outside backer coach at Ashley Ridge, we brought him in. Obviously kept Coach Brian Mitchell, a longtime head baseball coach here at Hanahan, and he coaches everything. He can coach any position on the field. I can ask him to coach anything and he'll go do a great job at it. And so he's been a huge asset. Just his longevity at this school and in this community is tremendous. And so being able to keep him, that was great for us. And so, like I said, we kept some guys. We were able to hire a bunch of local guys, again, with Coach Hines coming in. Hired Coach Jason Davis, who played linebacker at Temple. He's a community guy that was in our area and loves the area and had coached previously. And so we brought him in. He's helping me with the defensive line. And so, again, we've built a staff of guys that have got a tremendous amount of experience at multiple levels, high school and college. And ultimately, we've just got a great group of guys that love kids and they're about the right things. And that's what's important for me.
So, Coach, obviously a lot of folks probably aren't too familiar with you and your past being over in Georgia, but, what type of schemes do you plan to run? And then, do you call plays for either side of the ball as well?
No, I'm more on the defensive side. I love the DL. That's kind of my bread and butter, my passion. Love being a part of that. I feel like, with my experience, there's so much to running a program and building a program, so much more than XOs. I feel like for us to build the program the way we need to, I need to make sure that I'm checking all those boxes. So, I'm hands-on with our strength program. That's a big part of my background. There's fundraising, there's character, culture building things that are year-round for us. So I want to keep my hand on our culture and what we're doing every day with that. And again, not just developing players, but building men of character, integrity, and excellence. That's huge for me. One of my biggest things, I think that's a huge responsibility for me, is making sure that our players leave our program with a toolbox for life. I want to make sure they're great husbands and fathers. The biggest reward I get from what I do is 5, 10, 15 years later. I can't tell you what it means for me to get a text on Father's Day, birthdays, Christmas, from former players. Love you, Coach. Thank you for everything you did. I mean, I've got guys that have retired out of the NFL, and I've got guys that served 3 tours in Iraq, and everything in between. And those are the things that give me the goosebumps and make me more proud and more happy than even the wins do. And so I feel like as a head coach, I've got to make sure I have the pulse of that in our program. So that's big for me. The organization piece, just so many things. And so I believe in hiring great people and let them do their jobs. I'm not a micromanager. I hire somebody. I don't want to have to, if I got to hold your hand, I might as well get your supplement and do it myself. And I've hired a bunch of great guys where I don't have to do that. And so Cam will call plays on offense and Brett will call the defense. And I'm just going to be a backseat guy and raise money and love on kids and build culture and watch them do their thing.
Coach, with your experience, at this point, you are the influence to a lot of young coaches and things like that. But who are some guys that you continually look at, maybe in the past, that you've patterned your career after? And who are some of the younger guys that you kind of study, to keep those schemes fresh and continue to be successful in coaching?
That's a great question. I think at the college level, a lot of us, I mean, obviously you look at guys who have been really successful, whether you're talking about a Nick Saban, a Kirby Smart, looking at things that they do, looking at a guy like a Dabo Swinney at Clemson. And I can tell you honestly, my career, I'm the biggest thief there ever was. I'll steal ideas and plays and concepts from everybody. And so through my career, I can tell you, making trips out to LSU when I was a young coach to see Coach Saban and Coach Moffitt in the weight room, and going to Alabama and seeing him, and going up there to Georgia to see Kirby, where I was going to sit down with Dabo's staff and some of his guys and gleaning from them, going down to Florida State and Florida and seeing Coach Spurrier and those guys. I mean, I can go way back, names some people probably wouldn't remember, but really it was just, I was a sponge, I really was. And so going to see those guys, and even beyond that, was looking around at high school programs. One of my best friends, Jess Simpson, was the longtime head coach at Buford High School near Atlanta, won 9 state titles. Yeah. Jess and I have been friends for 30 years. And so every year I made a trip to see Jess, and just sit there and talk defense, D-line, head coach, you name it. He was a culture guy. Now he's the defensive coordinator at Duke University. Y'all know what they did this year up there with Coach Elko. I mean, in my opinion, he's one of the best coaches in America. He spent time with the Falcons, the Hurricanes. And so there's a guy that did it at the high school level and then translated to be one of the best at the NFL and collegiate level. And so, I think it's a career of finding people like that and just gleaning from them and soaking things up. I can tell you this, spending last year in the Sun Belt, the group of 5, if you look around the country this year, a bunch of Power 5s went out and scooped up OCs and DCs out of the G5s. The DC at Marshall's down there is the DC down at Miami now. And, those guys are getting scooped up, and there was some great football. And if you watch football last year, you saw a lot of Sun Belt teams and G5 teams beating up some Power 5 teams. And so I think a lot of quality coaches that not just XOs, but know how to build programs and culture are at some of those smaller programs. You look at North Dakota State, South Dakota State, programs in the FCS like that there's a lot of great coaches at a lot of levels. And I think as young coaches, the thing that was good for me was finding those people and just soaking stuff up from them, try to learn as much as I could.
Coach, we talked earlier, you were hired in January, able to get on campus, pretty early. How important was that to be able to kind of go through spring ball with your team and be able to get in the weight room early on with those guys?
Oh, it's huge, and it's one of those things, having done it for so long in Georgia and then here, that's almost a non-negotiable. If you can't get in there, in the winter, ooh, boy, that's tough. And so I was really excited at how fast, once the ball got rolling, how fast Berkeley County and Hanahan High School, wanted to get me in there and get me on campus. And so it was vital to get in there again, like I said earlier, to get our strength program started, to begin to build culture. So we had a lot of time to do that. Even our middle school, I had our middle school kids coming over after school. We averaged about 80 kids a day after school coming from our middle school. So it was a chance for me to get my hands on them, for me and my staff to start being around those young kids and investing in them. So that you couldn't put a price tag on the value of being able to be in the weight room, do our culture, and then also, again, being able to get our staff in place. That was really big. It gave me the time to do that. So when spring got here, we felt like we had a lot of the bricks in the wall stacked up, so to speak. And it made for a really productive spring. Still a million miles to go, but that catapulted us into the summer. And I can't tell you how proud I am of our kids, our players, our coaches, our community. It's been a phenomenal summer. The support has been unbelievable from our community, our moms and dads, and the commitment and the consistency of our kids has been really, really incredible, and really makes me proud.
At Moving the Chains, what we love to do in our, our mission statement and primary goal is to shine a light on these programs in South Carolina, the coaches, but most importantly, the kids. Who are some special players that we should be on the lookout for your team this year?
It's a great question, and there really is a lot of them. I know that sounds cliche, but obviously on the offensive side of the ball, Kayvon Rivera, who's a returning running back for us. We feel like this will be a breakout year from him. I really feel like, as a group, our offensive line, we're really excited about our guys up front on the OL and the DL, and there's a bunch of those guys, too many to try to mention because I wouldn't want to leave a kid off of that group. I'm really excited at the progress that they've made. We have a young receiver core, but I'm excited about them as well. They've made a tremendous amount of strides over there. On the defensive side of the ball, I would say, Jay Meadows is coming back as he's played safety, outside backer. He's a guy that we feel like can make a lot of plays for us over there on defense. Trey Shepard at corner is another kid coming back. Tajay Hartwell's a young corner for us that has just I have fallen in love with that kid since spring football. I mean, his effort, his attitude, he's physical, just a lunch pail guy. I mean, he's just going to show up and go to work. Super excited about him. And again, there's a handful of the guys that are playing OL that are crossing over and playing some D line as well. Good size and good athleticism, and it's an opportunity. With us, we believe in building depth. We want to play a lot of kids. That's one of the things I feel like we'll bring to the table. We're not just going to play the same kids all the time. We feel like, especially in high school ball and especially with the early heat, you better have a lot of guys ready. And I mean, we feel like if we can develop a kid to play 5 or 10 snaps, that helps the kid was playing 50 or 60. Now if he's playing 40 full speed, we feel like makes him a better player. But then it's given a level 2 or 3 tier kid an opportunity to get on the field. And so we feel like that promotes our program because kids know, hey, I may not be the first guy out on the field, but I'm going to work all week and I'll get on the field. There'll be an opportunity for me to contribute into play. And so, again, a lot of great guys, again, too many to mention, but those are a couple of guys I feel like right out of the gate that'll be a big help for us.
So, Coach, we're kind of coming to the end of, what you might want to call the 7-on-7 season or whatever you want to call it there. Are you a big fan of that stuff? Have y'all been doing much of that? And how's that been going for you this offseason?
Well, I'll put it this way. South Carolina said you could do 11 on 11
Yep.
for the first time this summer. Now in Georgia, we're used to padded OTA.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we can do more in high school down there than you can in college. So,
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun for me and for us. But we've done 1 7-on-7 this summer, if that says anything. So we've done a bunch of the 11 on 11. Mm-hmm. I've done the 7-on-7. I see merit for it. I feel like for us, I can only speak for our program. I felt like we needed a lot of days to work football, the run game, the pass game, all of it. I felt like we needed a lot of work. Sometimes you get caught up in the 7-on-7, and a lot of times it pulls those skill kids away for so long. We didn't need to miss any time in the weight room. We didn't need to miss any time to get that teamwork and culture. We needed those things. So for our program, I felt like being at home and working hard, and then the 11 on 11 is real. 7-on-7 sometimes can be a false positive. You're out there spinning it around with no bullets flying. Now I understand you can go out there and work your pass game. That's a positive. I understand for your secondary, it's a great opportunity to work coverages. And so there's definitely some benefit. But for us, we felt like the 11 on 11 fit what we needed, and being at home, lifting weights, doing a lot of team stuff was going to prepare us for this first year.
Now, Coach, you're just leaving a role where you're working at Georgia Southern, kind of working with high school coaches, being an intermediary, between the college and high school coaches.
Sure.
We see it so frequently now. These high school kids, especially in a state like South Carolina, where we don't get a lot of publicity, it's harder for them to get recruited. We had the crazy stuff with transfer portal, extra year of COVID. How vital is, coaches like you having relationships on the college level and in the large high school network? How important is that for you to get your guys recruited and get them, to the next level?
It's definitely got some importance. But we're in a new age. We really are. Even with connections, and those sort of things, it honestly, it's turned into a monster. It really has. And in some respects, it looks like can look a little out of control even.
Yeah.
You know, when you're looking at Power 5, even G5 programs now that have the opportunity with a transfer portal to get guys in their program who already have collegiate reps on Saturdays, that's huge. You know, you have a lot of and they're doing it for different reasons. You may have some younger programs, coaches come in, their talent level isn't up to snuff compared to everybody else, and so they're saying, hey, within 1 to 2 years, I can transform this whole roster, you know, with a transfer portal. And I get that because they got to win. And so,
Sure.
so when they're filling 40 spots off transfers, well, those are high school kids that aren't getting to go there now. And then you have some programs that are already successful and winning, but they're saying a DL coach is saying, hey, we're losing this kid to the NFL. Do we want to go sign a 18-year-old and try to develop him? Or do I want to go sign a 21-year-old who's played 2 years, you know, whether it's JUCO or at a smaller program, but he's been a big fish in a small pond. Let's bring him in here. He can play right now. And so I get that as well. I have a lot of respect for people like Coach Sweeney at Clemson who say, hey, we're really not going to dabble in that. We're going to develop guys and so on. So I don't think you can fault the people who are doing it. I have a lot of respect for the ones who haven't really jumped into that, which aren't many. He's one of the few, but it really has posed a real issue for high school kids. You know, even 4-star and 3-star kids who in the past they were going Power 5. Well, that's not the case now. And so now you got G5 and even FCS programs that are getting kids they never would have gotten before because those opportunities aren't there for them. And by the same token, those kids may go play at a Furman or play at a Mercer or a Kennesaw and do it for a year, knowing if I go do what I know I can do, I'm out of there in a year. I'll get picked up. I can go to Georgia Southern, App State, or I may even go to an Auburn or a Florida, depending on how I do. And so that has really created a lot of problems for high school athletes. Now, the good thing about it is there's still a lot of football out there. I think high school athletes and maybe more so parents are going to have to be more realistic about what their opportunity is. You know, that's one of the things that I talk to our guys about all the time. Hey, make your top 10 list, right? But I tell them, hey, have a few of your big schools. I'm good with that. Have a few mid-tier, but let's put some smaller schools on there that we know play good football, have good schools where you can get a great education and a place where you could see yourself going to school and living and being happy. And so we try to influence them in that way, guide them in that way, talk to the parents in that way, so that when the opportunities come, you know, it may not be Alabama or Georgia, but that's okay. We try to educate them on the landscape of college football and what that looks like right now. But it's a great question you ask. But connections, they do help. I think more so than the connections, though, is understanding how that whole system is working, which I was able to see, being able to articulate that to parents and kids and say, hey, there's opportunity. And here's the thing. If you're good enough, they will find you. That opportunity will be there. And if you're good enough, even if you do go to a smaller school, if you've got the heart and you've got the work ethic and you've got the talent, we all know that those opportunities to move up through the transfer portal and to even find an opportunity at the next level, it'll be there.
Sure.
You still got to put in the work.
So, Coach, when you took the job there at Hanahan, what was maybe the first thing that you said, hey, I've got to instill this or change this, or what was maybe the most important thing you wanted to really, work on right out of the gate there for the Hawks?
Yeah, great question. I would say that question, it's twofold for me. It would be the strength and conditioning and culture, but the most important to me is the culture because I think that's your foundation. You know, before I can have a great strength program, before we're going to go out there and have a great 2-hour practice, before we're going to travel well on Friday, before we're going to play the game with character in class, we have to have the foundation of culture, which dictates how we carry ourselves, whether it's in the weight room, the locker room, the practice field, game field, or out in the street or at home with mom and dad. Culture is the foundation for us. We feel like if you build that, now you're talking about attitude, body language, work ethic, all of those things that are critical. And for me, one of the things I've learned through the years, we hear that word culture used a lot. You hear it in the business world, the coaching world. Culture is not something you put on a wall or on a T-shirt. culture is something that has to be touched every day. I don't care if you're a Fortune 500 company or a football program. If I tell you guys, hey, our culture is we run on and off the field, you come to a Hanahan game and our guys are walking on and off the field, you're going to come to me and say, Coach, your culture is walking on and off the field because that's what we're doing. And so we have to touch it every day. I can't say, well, guys, all right, on Monday, here's our culture, leave it alone for a few weeks, because what happens is our culture is it's always going to go backwards. You can't do that. So you have to touch some piece of it. I don't have to go through our whole culture every day, but I have to hit on something every single day that constantly reminds them of who we are, what we're about, and how we do things. And so that would be the foundation.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
So, Coach Turner, we're going to transition to a couple easier ones. Moving the chains, typical style. We got to ask about food. You've been down there in Hanahan for about 6 months now. What are some of the favorite restaurants you've identified in that area? So if me and Kevin and John come for a road trip, where are we going to stop before a game?
Yeah, probably number one would be the Wreck down on Shims Creek. That's one of our favorites. Go down there and get some seafood on the water. Page's Okra Grill down at Mount Pleasant's another really good one. Poe's down at Sullivan's, get a hamburger. Let me think. We hit a bunch of. It's just me and my wife now, so like every weekend it's trying something new. Something to hit right here by Hanahan. Dashi's is a great little place we love to go to. There's a bunch of good ones down there. Man, I'd have to think for a second. Rita's down at Folly Beach is another really good one. We love going down there to Rita's. That's a good place to eat. Of course, if you want barbecue, you got Lewis's Barbecue downtown, which is really good. There's several of them, that are really good. So a bunch of good places. That's a hard question for the Charleston area. Try to pin it down to one or two.
Yeah, that's tough. I try to go to Charleston a good bit. I was actually down there about a month ago, and those are always the good spots. But a Poe's, that's one of the best burgers you can get.
That's a great one, man. Oh, yeah. You can't go wrong with that one. Yep, that's a good one.
So, Coach, we were talking off air. You had the opportunity to coach in the Under Armour All-American game twice now. I think it was 2008 and 2011. How cool was that experience getting to coach, really the best of the best across high school football those 2 years?
It's a great experience being around those kind of kids. I've had the opportunity to coach really good players, but never a conglomerate group of kids that were, blue chip. And that was a great experience. Probably the neatest thing was probably 2008 first breakfast at 5:30 a.m. and I'm sitting there with Coach Marv Levy, the Hall of Fame coach for the Buffalo Bills, and he looks over at me and he says, Coach Turner, you got special teams, and so I'm like, okay, wasn't expecting that. I was doing the defensive line position wise, but it was just a really neat experience to be around guys from that level, and just how laid back they were. They were great people to be around. These are guys that had coached, their whole lives in the NFL, had coached Hall of Famers and that sort of thing. And you kind of felt like, you had been coaching with those guys forever, just the way they treated you. So the way Under Armour took care of you was phenomenal, the way those coaches were. And then again, like I said, sometimes it was tough going out to practice because I'm supposed to be running drills and I'm looking up like, there's Matt Barkley, or there's so-and-so, and you're watching some of the best players in the country running around. It was hard not to be a fan and get caught up watching them do their thing. There's Trent Richardson. I'll tell you a funny story about him. At the hotel we were at, the big ballrooms, they had pool tables and video games, and they were funneling food in there for those guys all the time between practices and meetings and opportunities for them to go do stuff. And there was one particular night where the players were able to go out, and have an excursion and do a bunch of cool stuff at Disney. And I was walking by one of the ballrooms, and there was one kid in there sitting on a couch watching Alabama against Utah in the bowl game. And he's sitting there with a hoodie on and he's got a large pizza sitting in his lap. And I walk in there, I look, and it's Trent Richardson sitting there. And I was like, "You're not going out tonight?" And he looked up, he said, "No, Coach, my team's playing." So he didn't even go out on the excursion. He sat there eating his pizza, watching Alabama play Utah in a bowl game. And I just thought that was really neat. Spoke a lot about him. And, he was there supporting his team. He hadn't even been on campus yet.
Now, my favorite part of being with Moving the Chains is, Friday Night Lights, those games. Love talking to coaches like you as well, so don't want to discount that. But what are some of the best environments, toughest environments you've encountered as a coach? I know you got some great experience in Georgia. I know this is a South Carolina-centric show, but just want to hear about those environments that you were able to experience as your time there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you think back to state championship games, where, it used to be in Georgia, the state championships were at the high schools. We used to play the semifinals at the Georgia Dome for years and years.
Yeah.
And then they switched it and started playing the state championships up there in the Atlanta area, which a lot of coaches like me wish they would go back. To me, it was a lot more fun. I can remember the rivalry of Warner Robins versus Northside. ESPN rated that as a top 10 high school rivalry. We had over 20,000 people. That was just a regular season game. And it was just, it's unbelievable. Make the hair stand up on your neck, and you can't hardly swallow. I mean, you're just like, it's unbelievable that game, that rivalry. Again, playing in the state championships. Matter of fact, in 2017, the state championships were at the Mercedes-Benz. We had a big snowstorm that came through the South, if you guys remember, back then here in December. We were up there in Atlanta. We were actually at a movie with our players. We were going to play that evening. They called us and said that because of the snow and the weather, they were canceling. So everybody had to go home, and you had another week to prepare for state championship games. And it ended up we had to go play at Lee County. They were in our region, by the way. We'd already played them once. And there was well over 20,000 people for that. So we got to play at a high school for the state championship, and you felt that electricity. Because when you're playing a state championship in the Mercedes-Benz, I mean, you can have 15,000, 20,000 there, and it looks like nobody's there.
Sure.
And so I kind of feel like sometimes that was a little bit of a letdown. But those are the experiences I remember, those championship games, or, the big rivalry games down there. I mean, it was easy, like, even at Emmanuel County, I mean, we would pack it out. You could have 10,000 people standing around the fences. They're 5-10 people deep. Stands are packed. I mean, those are just exciting times. So hopefully we can have some of that up here at Hanahan. Hopefully we can put a great team on the field and get people to want to come out and get excited.
There you go. So, Coach, you mentioned earlier, we've seen some Group of Five guys, beat a bunch of Power Five teams the last couple of years, including your Georgia Southern squad last year, knocking off, Nebraska. That week, did you guys know that you had a pretty good chance in that ball game? And then what did it mean to the program to be able to beat, a traditional power like Nebraska?
Yeah, we did. The job that Coach Helton and that staff did coming in was phenomenal. And I can tell you from top to bottom, our talent level last year in comparison in the Sun Belt was closer to the bottom, from an overall standpoint. There were some positions that I felt like we were really good. We felt like we had a really good quarterback. We had a phenomenal receiving core. And if you go back and look at the end of the year for us and the job we were able to do, like knocking off App State at the end of the year to go to a bowl game and all, but we ended up losing 3 of our 4 starting receivers by the end of the year. And all 3 of those guys were, 700,000-800,000 yard guys. I mean, they're all 3 top 3 receivers in the Sun Belt, right, coming back this year. And so that really, really hurt us in that spread offense. But yeah, we knew we had weapons. We felt like we could score if we stayed healthy. Our offensive line came a million miles. They got better and better, did a great job. We had a really good running back group, and those receivers were really special. And you saw that we put up a ton of points that game, on Nebraska, and we knew we had a really good group. I feel like if we had stayed healthy, even though we had a great year, we're bowl eligible and that sort of thing. We were at Coastal up 31-14 in the fourth quarter, and weren't quite able to finish that one on the road, which was a big game. Another big one against Troy. We had them beating them the whole way, and then they score right at the very end of the game to win that one. So we lost a few really close games. And again, like I said, the injury bug hit us and hurt us a little bit. But I think you're going to see big things out of them this year. They've got those receivers are back. The personnel, they were really young last year. They're going to be a really good football team. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch. So I'm excited for Coach Helton and the things they've got going there.
Coach, before we let you go, what are some of your goals for the 2023 season in the Hanahan Hawks?
Obviously we want to have a winning season. We want to make the playoffs, and beyond that, I'm a be in the moment kind of guy. I really am. Be where your feet are. I don't like to prognosticate or get too far in advance, but I do, like you said, I do believe in having some goals and some things that that we can shoot for. I think the vast majority of our goals right now really are the day to day. I'm a big, take one step at a time. Don't look at the mountaintop. It'll, if you just keep taking that one step, you'll get there. You'll look up and be there. And so for us in the short term, we've got to continue to get bigger and stronger day by day. We've got to continue to become a very physical football team. You guys asked earlier, you talked a little bit about what our scheme was going to be. Offensively, we're a power spread. So we want to be physical, be able to run the ball, but we're gonna use play action, RPO game, and screen game as well. Take shots. But we definitely want our MO to be that we're a physical football team. Even if we're putting the ball out on the perimeter, we want our receiving core to be able to block well and open up opportunities for guys with the ball. Defensively, we're very multiple, from odd and even looks. The biggest thing I can tell you on defense, the non-negotiable for us is running to the football. And hopefully that's something that we continue to develop and that everybody sees on Friday night is 11 hats, running with their hair on fire, trying to get to that football every single play. We feel like everything else that we do defensively will build off of that. If we can't run to the ball, it doesn't matter what we line up in. If we're not playing fast and playing physical, then schemes are relevant. We talk about all the time, culture eats scheme for breakfast. And so we feel like there's some non-negotiables on offense, defense, and special teams that have to be in place. And if those things are there, then when we implement scheme, we can be successful. And so we'll build on that again, like I said, to try to have a winning year and get in the playoffs. And as well as I do, guys, once you get in the playoffs, it's anything can happen. That's a funny shaped ball, and it can bounce all kind of which ways. And we're just gonna hope it keeps bouncing our way.
Well, this has been great. I want everyone to go follow Coach Turner and the Hawks program on Facebook and Twitter, etc. They do a great job posting highlights and updates about the program. So definitely go check them out on there. Like I mentioned, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Movin Chains, movinchains.com. Our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Movin Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Drew, anything else for Coach before we let him go today?
Coach Turner, just thank you so much for your time and joining us today, telling us about your background. Looking forward to what you do with that program there. Just know you're going to be successful because you have been everywhere that you've been. Looking forward to Low Country football. We've had a few coaches on the Low Country. They've made great strides hiring coaches like you, coaches from out of the state who are very interested, seeing that commitment at Hanahan, and just really excited for your opportunity and look forward to covering your team.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Those are kind words, and thanks for the great questions. Those were really good.
We appreciate it, Coach. Look forward to stopping by a practice or a game and getting to meet you in person. And best of luck this year, all right?
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.